Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Bob.
It was a cold Wednesday afternoon, 1985. I had just arrived in a suburb of Chicago, Naperville, Illinois, to St. Margaret Mary's Parish, where I would preach a parish mission. When I arrived, the pastor, Father Ted Weitzel, told me that there was a young 16-year-old teenager in the parish, Margot, and she was dying. And he asked me if I would go and visit her to make sure that she was ready to die. Truth be told, I didn't want to go. What do you say to a dying woman? What do you say? But you know, in ministry sometimes, you're asked to do stuff that you don't want to do, and you're afraid to do, but you do it anyway. You do it with fingers crossed that you don't make a mistake. So I called Margot's parents up and arranged for a time to visit her. When I arrived at their house and rang the doorbell, Margot's parents met me at the door. And they led me into the living room where Margot was, in a hospital bed that her parents had bought for her to spend the last days of her life. The first thing I noticed about Margot was the light coming through her eyes. You know, Jesus says in the gospel that the eyes are the lamp of the soul. He hit the nail on the head. When you go home today, look in the mirror and see what we see when we look at you. Do your eyes blaze with anger? Are your eyes clouded with self-pity? Look at yourself, because the eyes really are the lamp of the soul. Margot and I chit-chatted for a while, and as we chit-chatted, I was trying to bring up the topic of death. Surprisingly, she was the one who broached the topic. She looked at me and she said, "I guess they told you I'm dying." "Yeah, Margot, I know. I think it's getting pretty soon, Father, because I'm finding it harder and harder to breathe." She told me how she suffered from Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, a disease in which you gradually lose control of your muscles. In Margot's case, it had started in her ankles and was gradually working its way up her body. And the doctor said, when it reaches my chest, my lungs are going to collapse and I'm going to suffocate. I think it's getting pretty soon, Father, because I'm finding it harder and harder to breathe. Margot, do you find it hard to die? Yes, What's difficult about dying, Margot? Father, it's not fair. Parents are not supposed to bury their children. It's a child's job to bury the parent. And when my mother and my father bury me, it's going to break their hearts. And how I wish I could just take their pain away. And my high school classmates, most of them have never experienced death. And so my death is going to be the very first death they ever experience. And I wish I could just take all their pain away. Let me tell you something. If there was somebody on this planet who had a right to be angry with God, it was Margot. And if there was anybody on this planet who had a right to be filled with self-pity, it was 16-year-old Margot. But the very moment she made the choice to move beyond her anger, the very moment she made the choice to move beyond self-pity, the very moment that she made the choice to enter into the suffering of her parents and her classmates, at that moment, Lou Gehrig's disease lost its power to destroy her. And it became her path to holiness. It was transforming her into a saint. I called this novena, Live Like a Saint. And every day we've been looking at certain qualities, just one quality a day, that we can live in order to become holy. And today, it's Margot's quality. Compassion. Compassion comes from the two Latin words, cum passio. Cum means with, passio means to suffer. That's compassion. To suffer with someone. To enter into their suffering and to feel their pain. It's going to break my mother and my father's heart, Father. I just wish I could take their pain away. I hope you heard today's gospel, because we have that wonderful line in today's gospel. Jesus' heart was moved with pity. That Greek word that is used to be moved with pity, it's the same word that is used when a pregnant woman feels the baby kick. It's a way for the evangelist to remind us that Jesus' compassion wasn't a superficial compassion, but it came deep within his gut. It felt like he had been kicked in the stomach. Compassion, a way to holiness. I hope to God there are at least two saints in this church right now who felt kicked in the stomach when they saw children being ripped from their parents at the border. I hope there are at least one or two saints among us who were worried sick when they heard about the 12 teenagers and the coach trapped in a cave in Thailand. Oh, I hope there's at least one or two of you who, when you heard about the homes being destroyed by the volcano in Hawaii, maybe you even shed a tear. That's compassion. That is a way to become a saint. This is what holiness is all about. And my friends, please remember, compassion will never destroy you. All compassion does is stretch the size of your heart, making it like the Sacred Heart of Jesus. That's why Margot found it hard to die, because her heart was filled with compassion. Tomorrow, I'll tell you why she told me it was not hard to die. May the Lord give you his peace.